Welcome back. Spreading fake news and disinformation may see political parties facing serious consequences. The 2021 Local Government Anti-Disinformation Project, spearheaded by Right to Know and activists, will monitor any misinformation and disinformation in the November 1 polls. This, of course, comes as the election campaign season kicks into full gear. Let's speak to Adebayo Okeowo from The Witness to tell us more about this initiative. Thank you so much for making time, Adebayo. So parties, we know, often want to endear themselves to potential voters. They tend to say anything, really, even if it means it's misinformation that they're spreading, just so that they can get the votes. You will be monitoring them. What will you be looking out for?
Thank you so much to have this opportunity to share about this issue. Indeed, when it's an election period, parties want to court and woo voters so that they could get as many votes as possible. That is absolutely in order. What is not in order is when parties engage in misinformation or disinformation in a bid to either spread what is not true about themselves or their party, or what is not true about their own opponents in a bid to get them more favorable responses. That is what we want to guard against, because it's not just about presenting yourself in more favorable light that is at stake, but the peace of the country, the democracy of the country is also at stake, because we have seen how misinformation and disinformation can potentially create harm, incite violence, and cause a lot of fatal issues in a democratic society. We have examples from not just Africa, but outside the shores of Africa. And so that is something that we are very concerned about as a collective of organizations trying to monitor this issue as we go into the local government elections in South Africa come November.
Yeah, that's just going to be an important work that you'll be doing. We know, obviously, that the IEC Code of Conduct came into effect as soon as the election date was declared, and it prohibits political parties from, in fact, abusing their powers to influence the outcome of elections. What happens to those that violate the Act? Will you report them, and where will you be reporting them?
That's a very good question. In fact, to be more specific, it's Section 89, Sub 2 of the Electoral Act of South Africa that essentially bars political parties from making any false statements. And if I would be allowed to just cite that section, it says that no person may publish any false information with the intention of disrupting or preventing an election or influencing the conduct or outcome of an election, and it goes on to say a number of other things. And there are a number of penalties that are imposed by the Act itself for anybody who flouts those provisions of the Act in Section 89. One of those penalties includes a fine of 200,000 Rand, and sometimes also losing the votes in that particular locality, that community where that misinformation may have been perpetrated. And there are other kinds of punishments and penalties that could come along that political parties could potentially face if they flout this electoral law. The key thing to note is that they are aware that this provision of the Act does exist, that the punishment that could follow if they flout it, and that citizens and organizations like this collective of ours will be looking out to ensure that they do not violate the provisions of this law. And in terms of what do we do, in addition to just highlighting any piece of misinformation, disinformation that is circulated maybe through social media, we would try to go ahead and report this to the Electoral Court for proper remedy and adequate recourse, so that we do not risk the peace of the democratic society such as South Africa.
Yeah, and I know that the campaign season has just recently started. Anything that you guys have picked up just yet?
Well, definitely we are already starting to see a tendency for some political parties to toe the line of us versus them. In the context of when you think about the rhetoric of foreigners in South Africa, keeping the borders safe, and sort of pushing back against foreign nationals, especially of African descent, which we've seen in the past can fall xenophobic attacks. This is a very dangerous slope that would kind of caution against, because I believe political parties can make their case heard and known without necessarily of the world, as a matter of fact. If you want to seek the best interest of the people of South Africa, you want to seek for economic growth and progress, that can still be done. Economic progress can be achieved without demeaning people from other countries or other nationalities. And that's something we're beginning to see to pick up, and it can incite violence against other nationals. And we would definitely not want to see that happen in South Africa.
Yeah.
And so any form of misinformation, disinformation that is targeted at foreign nationals as well, to certainly paint them in a very poor light, is something we should be careful about. And people should verify their own statistics as well. When they tell you that foreign nationals are the ones doing certain things, you want to be sure that the statistics match up and that it is in line with what has been verified.
Yeah, we also need to do the work. We shouldn't just take whatever these politicians tell us as the gospel truth. We must verify it, especially during this silly campaign season. Thank you so much for making time. Adebayo Okeowo is with The Witness, talking to us about this anti-disinformation project.